We have a brand new redesign of the seasonal affix for Dragonflight Season 1, and this one is looking so much better than the old one. For those unaware, during the weekend, surprise M Plus testing release, they also released an early version of the seasonal affix, Thundering, to test. They released it with a statement saying the affix was still under development and would probably go through many iterations, but this one was really bad. What the old version of Thundering was a random effect throughout the dungeon that would happen roughly every minute to minute and a half while you were in combat. Whenever this effect procced, your screen would darken and a bunch of small little blue swirlies would appear on the ground and zap down with lightning, which if you got hit by it would hurt and stun you. However, at the exact same time, a circle would form around you, and after a few seconds, you would send out 5 bolts in straight lines, similar to prideful lines from Season 1's of Shadowlands. The kicker here is that if you came into contact with the ring around somebody, or any of the bolts, you would take damage and also be stunned. It's like quaking with a stun. This affix was bad for many, many reasons. Firstly, it was incredibly punishing for melee. Every time it procced, you would basically have to just not hit anything and run out, or risk getting stunned and dealt damage by the affix, especially because of the quaking circle around you. The darkening of the screen was another issue, as it would make dodging actual mechanics, which, still happen, much harder, because you just really couldn't see much that was going on. It was also just boring and unfun. You didn't interact with it at all, there was no reward for it, no reason to interact with the fix at all. It simply existed to make things harder, which goes against kind of the Kiss Curse feedback that they've been receiving for a while. And they did say that they're going to reduce the Kiss Curse aspect, reduce the borrowed power from it. Things kind of got out of hand in the last few seasons of Shadowlands, but this isn't reducing it, this is just removing it. Speaking of that, no bonus for dealing with it. None. Nothing. Zip, zilch, nada. If you dealt with the affix, you just kind of kept playing. There was no added benefit for doing that properly. This was honestly a big issue for me, as the last 5 affixes, all of Shadowlands and the last one of BFA, all did this. And while some are better than others, they've offered some form of benefit for successfully dealing with the affix properly, incentivizing you to interact with it. Affixes like Awakened, which saw you entering obelisks and fight mini-bosses / trash in order to skip, all the trash in the overworld, let you really change up your route. Or Encrypted, which each encrypted pack would have kind of the options for what to kill, allowing for some skip potential, some damage potential, or stuff like that, were some of my personal favorite affixes. But the fact that this had none puts it down near things like Beguiling or Infested, 2 affixes which just simply existed to make things harder. Infested with little kahunis that would spawn and heal stuff, or Beguiling with the kind of precursor to Inspiring, where a bunch of different mobs were the dungeon that kind of made things harder. They just made it harder and less fun, and this affix was kind of going that way. But this change makes it a lot better and more fun to interact with. After the first iteration of the affix was published, I figured it would be changed pretty heavily, and that's kind of why I held off on making a video about it until now. However, with the most recent beta build, we've seen a datamine new affix. Now, I will say this is data mined, right? So things can and probably will end up changing, but this one is much better than the previous one. The new Thundering affix, the name stayed, reads as follows. Razageth marks players with Mark of Wind or Mark of Lightning, granting them 15% increased damage and healing for 15 seconds. Coming into contact with the opposite mark neutralizes the effect on both players. After 15 seconds, marked players are afflicted with Primal Overload, stunning them and inflicting nature damage every 1 second for 8 seconds. On top of that, the lightning swirlies will still rain down, however they no longer stun, just dealing damage. I think this affix is so much better and so much more interesting than the last one. It's much less punishing in melee, and it gives you a buff, which is great. It works basically like the Anduin mechanic, or Star Augur for people who were around back then, where 2 pairs of circles go out and you have to find the opposite one. The plan for it will probably be to find your partner pretty early on and then dip into each other at around 14 seconds, as long as you're before the 15 second mark so that you don't get stunned and benefit from most of the 15% damage. The fact that the lightning doesn't stun you anymore is great as well, providing you a little bit of leeway if you do get hit by one of the circles. Of course, since it's not on beta, it's actually just data mined, there are a few things that we're unsure of. Firstly, we don't know what happens if you contact your own mark. The data mine tooltip doesn't say anything, but there's a precedent from Anduin and Star Augur for something to happen. We don't know what, though. Secondly, there's 5 people in an M+ group, which is a lot different from a raid, which means only 2 pairs can actually happen. So what happens to the last person? Do they get, just shit out of luck? Do they just get stunned? Do they not get the buff? I'm assuming Blizzard thought of something, or else that last person's just out of luck, but we don't really know. Finally, we also don't know how the stun behaves. Is it a full 8-second stun like the tooltip would suggest, which personally I think is kind of crazy and way too long? Is it dispellable? Like, can the healer just dispel somebody if they don't get it? And how much damage does the dot actually do? The tooltip just kind of says 9. 9, not a big deal. We don't really know how dangerous it is or how dangerous it will be, but hopefully we can test it soon and get the answers to some of these questions. Overall, I'm significantly happier with this affix. It's looking so much more enjoyable than the first one was. And my hype level for Season 1 of Dragonflight back up where it was before. The previous Affix kind of killed it. Again, hopefully we can test soon and answer some of these questions, but I'm super excited for this new Affix. Some iteration on this will make it really, really good. But for where it is now, I'm much happier than what we had before. That's all for the video today. Let me know what you think of the Affix down below. Leave a like if you enjoyed it, and please consider subscribing to the channel. It really helps me out. Anyways, thanks for watching the video, and I'll see you guys next time.